All right, welcome back. This is episode 6, and in this episode, we're going to take a look at automating our doors so that they slide open and closed when we walk onto a certain area in front of them. I hope you enjoy the video, and we'll see you there. Okay, so in the last video, we finished up building the model of our door wall system for our sliding doors. What we're going to do now is we're going to export these into a format that we can load excuse me, that we can load into Unreal Engine. To do that, we need to select each item individually, and in the panel here for Unreal Engine 4, which in the latest version appears over here. In earlier versions it may appear in the T toolbox over here, depending on what version you're using. Over here, what we want to do is select the wall and come up here to export recursive and make sure that, now this might be set on auto, make sure it's set on export recursive, and we'll select the door and make sure it is already set. I must have already set these. I think I did do a test of this, so they're all set, but we need to make sure that's set for all three of them that we want to export. And you can do this with multiple models. Well, we just did it with 3 separate objects. You can do it with as many as you want. If they're all set on export recursive, it'll export. We're not going to change anything in these settings. We're going to leave them as default and come all the way down here to the bottom. I'm just using the scroll wheel. I guess I don't have my keys turned on. Turn the screencast keys on. We won't be in here very long anyway, but so that you can see what I'm doing here, I'm just scrolling down with my scroll wheel. And we'll hit Export Unreal Engine. And it will export it into a subfolder underneath where we saved the model. And I'm going to now move those models over and go over to Unreal Engine, and I will see you there. Okay, so welcome back, and we are here in Unreal Engine. And the first thing that I want to do is I really don't have a place in here for models, so I want to click on Content and hit a new folder, and I'm just going to call this Models. And this is going to be for my various game assets. We'll put them under here. In this folder here, I'll just go ahead and create a new folder, and I'm going to call it we'll call it sliding door. That's what we've really created, as a sliding door. Now I want to import these items I've created, and I have those in Blender Scene Components, exported FBX, static mesh, and SM left door, right door, and wall with door opening. That's what we call those. And I'm going to import those in. We're going to get this box. We really don't have to worry about anything in here. You can change things if you need to, but we're not dealing with the skeletal mesh, so we'll just hit import all, and there we have them. And I just want to make sure this is in fact the right one. No. Okay, what did I do? Let me delete all those. Force delete. Let me go look, and I will pause the video and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. I found the files. Just a little confusion as to what folder I put things into. We're going to go to import. I'm going to get back out of here and go back into here, assets, Blender, exported files, static mesh, and there's my 3 FBXs. And we'll open those and import all, and there they are, and there's the nice mesh that we made. It doesn't look like much because it doesn't have any material assigned to it of any kind. Well, it sort of does. That's right, it has the basic white material that was exported from Blender. That's right here. And it's showing up on it. So I'm just going to pop that out of here. We don't want the static mesh in our scene. And I like to set up this is a personal organizational thing. I've got a sliding door folder here. So I'm going to put everything in my sliding door folder that it needs. So I'm going to go ahead and create another folder here that I'm going to call blueprints. And this is where the blueprints for this door will be. We can make multiple blueprints. We might do different things with it, have different kinds of doors. For instance, we might have doors that you can just walk through and they're fine, or they might require a key of some sort or an item in your possession or something else. That might be a different kind of door and it would be a different blueprint. So I'm going to go into this folder and I'm going to create a new blueprint class. It just needs to be an actor, and we're going to call this sliding door base BP. And this is going to be the base blueprint for our sliding door. I'm going to double click it and open it up. Now there's a couple of ways that we can do this. We can go back up here to our sliding door models, and we can grab these three, drag them up here, hold them over here until this appears, and just drop them in here and they'll all appear. And we'll notice they're all in place. They've all zeroed up on that point, and the door is in there and the door is in here. They're all in place, except I want the wall itself to be my root. That's it. It's done. All I did was take it and drag it up here and drop it on the root, and the wall itself is now the root of this component. There isn't a separate component in there to be the root, and that works out just fine. A couple of things that we need to do with this, however, we're going to compile and save this. We do need to go open up this wall. This is I double clicked on the wall itself. This is the static mesh editor within here, and we can apply certain techniques to this. And the main thing that we want to apply to this right now, for some reason, yes, it is turned on. So if we look at this, if we were to put this in game as it is, we wouldn't be able to go, well, we would with that if we had it on simple geometry. There's a box around it. We wouldn't be able to fly through here. Okay, so what we need is this complex collision, which is going to put a complex collision box all over this. And then we need to come down into this panel over here. This is the details panel for this mesh, and down here under collision primitives, where it says project default, we want to open that up and come down here and select use complex collision as simple. And we lost a whole bunch of detail in here, but it's still going to act as though we have the complex collision. And I can show you that here in the main scene. We'll just take it and drop it back in like we had before, and we'll hit play. And the collision is such now that I can actually walk through the door. Whereas before, I can't walk through the wall. I'll just bump into it. I can't go anywhere. But here I can. And yeah, oh yeah, we didn't load the doors in. We just dropped the mesh in there. So now we can walk through this opening. So that's what that's for. It sets up the collision properly on that wall so that we can walk through it as a door. And we'll do that on every kind of door we do in a wall or something we want people to be able to move through. We'll set up that use complex collision as simple. Back in our BP, why did I call this ABP? Is that a typo? That must be a typo. It's in blueprints. I'm going to change the name of that. I didn't want it to be ABP. Just BP. Sliding door base.bp. That's fine. So we've got our components in here now, and we're done with this part of it. We now need to go over to our event graph and start putting some things together. And one sec, I need to pull up just a reference. Just to be sure I know what I'm talking about here. We don't need, in the blueprint, we're going to, so this is the blueprint, that's the viewport, this is the construction script. We may get involved in construction scripts. These get called essentially when the thing constructs the first time. It's sort of like the class constructor. We're interested in the event graph, and we don't want any of these events because we're going to use different events. What we're going to do up here is in this component section where it says add component, we're going to pull this down here and we're going to type in collision. And we have three types. We have box collision, capsule collision, or sphere collision. We just want a box collision in there. And we'll just call this door switch. That'll work. I'm going to pull this up and drop it onto the root. Not onto the root. I'm going to pull it. I want it attach, not make new root. I want to attach it to the root. It doesn't need to be attached. I don't want it attached to the doors. I need it attached to the root because we don't want this to move. And actually, we're going to go back to our viewport here because we just added this this collision box in. And what we want to do is look at this. Let's look at first from the top, and let's kind of center it in the door. And let's widen it. Oops. Center it in the door. Scale. Widen it out a little bit. Probably wider than the actual door itself by a little bit. And we're going to widen it out a little bit this way. That's probably big enough. And I will now switch to, is it right? Yes, it's right. And it doesn't quite need to be that thick, but it does need to come up. So we'll go to here and move it up to this baseline here. And I think I've got snapping on, so I want to set it right on that red line right there as close as I can. And that sets up a collision box. We'll go back here to perspective so we can look at it. Excuse me. So there's this collision box, and what this collision box is going to do is when the character touches this box, it's going to open the door. And in fact, actually, now that I look at it, we might want to make that a little bit bigger. Let's scale it up in this direction so that they can trigger it just a little further away from the door. About like that, maybe. That probably looks pretty good. It'll trigger, when it touches it here, it'll trigger it to open the door. So I'm just going to hit compile and save, so that's all done. And now we'll go over to our event graph, because what we want is this door switch first. And we just want to select it over here and scroll down on the details panel towards the bottom. We'll find these events, and there's two events here that we want. We want on component begin overlap and on component end overlap. These are the events that are going to say when our character hit that screen. So there's our first event. We'll select this again, and end overlap. We'll select that. So these are the two events that we're going to process. And the way we're going to process those is with a thing called a timeline. Now, this might be a little confusing, so bear with me. We're going to set up first a timeline, and I will explain what this is for. This is a way to perform animation. I just clicked add timeline. I'm going to call this, we're going to call it door open close underscore TL for timeline. When this event happens and we get the begin overlap, meaning a character has stepped into that collision box area, it's going to play this timeline. And when the well, we'll worry about the closing later. We'll go first the path of just opening the doors. They're actually closed right now, which is something we need to fix. And just remember that. Probably the easiest way to do this would be from a top view, I think. No, I think a left view. And here's these doors. So there's, oops, that's not it. There's the door. And there's this line right here looks to be the dead center. We're here, we're here. There's a door there and a door there. So what I want to do is change this to here, and I want to move this this way, right to that center point. And then I want to select this door and move it this way to this center point so that the door is by default closed. And we can now go back to our perspective mode. And there, our doors are closed. And seem to see a little gap in there, but that's okay. These are some tweaks that we can do in our model. We can always update the model and just toss it in here. Simple enough. I wanted to block it in so that we could do this part, which is, to me, the more interesting part. We'll get to the artwork and fixing things up and cleaning them up as time goes by. So the doors are closed. So let's go back here to our event graph. The timeline. So what I'm going to do is double click on this timeline, and it's going to open up a whole new window within this bar here. And a timeline is something you can create a variety of values and types of things from it. All we want is a float track, it's called. And this is a float track. And right now that float track is probably about 5 seconds long. And it is. So the first thing we want to do is determine the length. The length of this timeline is how long we want the doors to open and then how long to close. It's the same time either way. So I'm thinking about we'll do it initially in 1 second. We'll have a 1 second timeline. And I'll expand this up a little bit. So there's our 1 second timeline. And right here at the 0 mark, we want to right click and add a key. And what this key is going to do is it's going to give us some values. And the time we want it to start at needs to be 0. I didn't click exactly right, so it's not exactly 0. And the value we want it to be when it's there is also 0.0. So that's the first key at 0, 0. And what happened to the actual key? Why is it not showing up? Oh, it's down here. Okay. There's the 0 value. And here's 1. So now we want to right click out here and add key and do the same, except the time here is going to be at 1 second, which is the end of our timeline, and the value is going to be 1. Simple as that. So in 1 second, this timeline is going to drive this value over a period of 1 second from 0 to 1. Simple. Here in the event graph, what we want to do with this is we're going to ultimately want to set the relative location of our left door panel and our right door panel. We'll do the left door panel first. So I'm going to grab, I may have gone a little too fast there. Let me delete that. I'm going to go over here and get the left door panel and drag it over here onto the screen and drop it. This gives me access to functions and other things within that left door panel object that we've created. I'm going to pull off here and I'm going to type in set relative location is what I want. And so this is set relative location. And there's a new location and it's a vector. You can see it's got 3 values and it's got this 1 pin here. So we want to set a vector to that. So how are we going to do that? Out of our timeline track here, we have a value from 0 to 1, and we need to set a new location for this vector. And we're going to determine what that is in just a moment. But we're going to first set up the nodes, and then we'll figure out exactly where we want to move to. So to do that, we're going to use a type of node called a lerp. We're going to right click and type in lerp, and the one we want is lerp vector, which is already selected here. Lerp vector. What this is going to do is take this value from this timeline that goes from 0 to 1 in the alpha condition, and when it's 0, it's going to be in the A value, and when it goes to 1, it's going to move to the B value. But it's also going to move linearly between those two for any value between 0 and 1 on this alpha. And the return value is in fact the output of that, whatever that vector is in between there, and that goes into this new location. That's where we're going to move to. As this timeline runs, it's going to do an update, and what it's going to do that update is it's going to fire that set relative location. This is what's going to cause our door to move over time, is every time this thing gets a tick, it's going to update that position, create a new position in here. Well, actually, it's going to update that position and fire this set location, which is going to ask for a new location. It's going to come back to here. It's going to come back and ask for this new track value, determine what this vector is, and feed the vector into that so it can change the position. Now, the only question we have left is, what is the position that we want it to be in? Well, we already know its closed position is this, and if we click on the left door and look at its transform, it's at an X of 89.23. That's in its closed position. And when it opens, we want it to move to a position of 0. We already know that the 0 position is the completely open position for it. So if we go back here and if we go back here to the event graph, and we put in that number for X, 89, I think it was 0.23, was it? Let's look again. 89.23 and a bunch of numbers. I could actually copy those if I wanted to be super accurate. Go back to the event graph, and let's put this in for the X coordinate. And for the X coordinate, when it's fully open, we want this to be 0. So when we cross this, it should trigger this play, cause these updates, update the position based on this over that 1 second time. If we compile and save this, we can actually test it. We can come back here, and I took it out, so let's take our, I had just the model in before. Let's put this in here, and you know what? I don't want the player start right there. In fact, I think what I'm going to do is move this player start over and then move it this way. Yeah, that's a good place for the player start to begin at. And we'll hit play. And we're turned around. So if we come over here and we hit this, I'm on the back side of it. I have to stop it because we haven't put the closing function in yet. So let's go around to the other side so we can see it open the correct way. And there's our left door opening, and there it went. It opened, and we can actually walk through it. It's actually wide enough with just one panel open. So that part works. So we're on the right track. So let's go over here again to our blueprint. Now, we can use this same exact begin play when we get a begin overlap, or excuse me, end overlap event. We can bring this up here and put it into here and tie it into reverse. And when we get an end overlap, it'll just reverse the track, and it'll go from 1 to 0, and that will close. But if I do that, it'll close it as soon as I come out of that thing. And I want to give a little bit of a delay. So I'm going to go here and right click, and I'm going to type in delay. And I think a delay duration of maybe, let's make it 2 seconds. Will be good. So 2 seconds after I leave the bounding box of that of that collider that we put in, it should fire this event, will delay when I leave it, and 2 seconds after that it'll reverse it. So let's go over here and see how that works. And I don't care, it looks like it's the one on the right, but we're looking at the back of the wall. So we'll go through here, we'll come out of it, and we'll watch the door close. We're out of it, and 2 seconds later it closes. Opens, back up, 2 seconds later it closes. So there we have that door, side of the door, opening and closing when we go through. So we'll go back here to the BP. Now the second one is really fairly simple. Go back here to the viewport, click on this one. It's at minus 89. And we want it to be at 0 when it's fully open. So if we go back here, we'll go ahead and copy that value. We'll go back here to the event graph. And all we need is another one of these lerps. We're going to use the same value for it. So we can Control W will get us another lerp. We can take this same exact value here and plug it into the alpha, except we want to take this and make it that minus 89 value. Oops. Let's go back to it, copy it again. There's the door. Get this value, copy it. Go back to the event graph, put this in here, Control V. There's our minus 89, and we're going to go to 0. But we need a different update, because now we want to do the left door. So actually we can just Control W to copy this one, plug this into here, plug this into here, but now instead of this as the reference, which we can actually, to make it look nicer, move it down here, we want the right door panel to be the reference object, the target rather. Plug that into there. And now what should happen is they should both open and they should both close, and they should move in the correct directions. And if I did everything right, that's exactly what will happen. We will see. The proof, as they say, is in the pudding. And let's see if I got it right. Well, they both open. That's good. Just back up. And they both close. And they both open. And they both close. It should work from either side. We don't have a very big testing platform here. We'll have to do something about that. So there we go. We have a wall with a door in it with opening and closing. We can texture it up nice. We can fix some of the geometry. I can see some gaps and things in there that don't look so good. We'll have to fix that up a little bit. And yeah, shouldn't be a problem. I thought I fixed that. I thought I fixed that thing in the previous video there. Huh. So there it is. The door opening and closing. All right, thanks for watching. If you liked the video, hit that like button. If you really liked it, hit the subscribe button. And if you want to get notifications when I upload a new video, hit that notify button. It's right next to the subscribe button. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next video.